desk festooned with books. Welcome back, everybody, to Orthodox Review, the most uneducated educational program on the internet today. I am your host, the guy with 1.5 thumbs. Some people call me Nubby, some people call me Raphael. Just don't call me late to liturgy. Anyway, this is an amalgamation episode. This is actually going to be episode 72 plus episode 74, just because it just so happens that the two go together. They complement one another. Okay, so as I try to get my notes in order, you see a pile of books here. Let's clean this pile up and do like I used to do back in the day, before the dark times, before the empire. Okay, so here we go. Here's the books we'll be using today. You see some prayer books, mostly some monastic stuff, a psalter, but of course the first thing I want to talk to you about is this delightful nugget of joy. This is Prayers of the Desert, published by St. Ignatius Press, just released this week, and it was done in cahoots with Legacy Icons. This was translated by Archimandrite Ephraim Lash, who reposed in the Lord in 2016. He was the Greek. He was under the ecumenical patriarchate. He was a Greek archdiocese of Thyatira and Great Britain, and he has done over the years several translations of liturgical books. Like him and Bishop Callistos Ware are kind of like the two heavyweights of translations over there. And so this translation was done, I guess, before 2016, but they don't say. I should really ring them up on the phone and ask, because that's the kind of stuff you guys deserve to know. At any rate, the introduction just kind of runs you into what's going on, and that's pretty much what I'm going to go over with you today. Now, as to the contents of the book, the Rule of St. Pachomius, which you can also find in the the St. Tikhon's Monastery book. It's a very short prayer rule, and it is one that is not uncommon. Pretty much it's the Trisagion, Psalm 50, 100, Jesus prayers after the creed and all that, and then, you know, it is truly meet in the usual closing. Now, the service of the 12 Psalms is where we get into the good. So, anyone who's familiar with the Psalter for prayer knows that this was, as far as I know, the first American appearance of the service of the 12 Psalms. And I thought I had it bookmarked, and I was wrong. Because, you know, so, boy, okay, I'll get there eventually. Hey, there it is. Okay, so so I was already familiar with the service, and what it is. And by psalms, they don't actually mean psalms. Like, there are 9 actual psalms, and then you have I thought I had it memorized. This is bad. So the last two or 3, you got the Prayer of Manasseh and the Little Doxology. And those are the last. The Prayer of Saint Eustratius. And those are your last 3 psalms. So you start with the normal beginning, and then work your way through. Every 3 psalms, and since it just keeps opening to third stasis, we'll go back to the end of the second stasis. You have the Trisagion, and then you have Troparia and Cantacia with a prayer, 30 Lord of Mercies, and then a glory, and then Come Let Us Worship, and right back into it. Now, what this version has over the Psalter for Prayer version, and it's one of those small little things, but it makes all the difference in the world for those of us out here in the real world. You have a table for, okay, so the tradition is that, you know, in the desert, they didn't always have a bunch of books laying around, so they just had these 12 psalms and this rule to replace greater services that you would find at larger monasteries. So you got these desert fathers just kind of doing this out in their caves. And so for each service, inside and outside of Lent, it lets you know which Stacies, Stacies to do instead of those services that you miss for whatever reason, which is not, of course, unlike the tradition that developed later on in Russia in the old ritualist tradition with the use of the lastovka to make up for services that you've missed. So with that out of the way, I would like to make a few comments about the translation, because it's unlike any translation I've seen, and it's not like, so far out there. There's a couple of words that he chose to use that I'm not going to say they were jarring. I'm going to say they really snapped me to attention, because, people argue about, this translation like being wonky and that translation being good, but sometimes it's just a word that just is so common, and all of a sudden someone takes a thesaurus to it and slaps the same word different. Check this out. Heavenly King, Paraclete, Spirit of Truth. We usually say, Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of Truth, Paraclete. And that's a very, very strong word, because, of course it means comforter, but, if you've ever listened to anyone talk about the Greek and the English, Paraclete, it's just a powerful word. And then down here again, when we get into the Trisagion, Holy God, Holy Strong, Holy Immortal, have mercy on us. Holy Strong. Oof. We have a strong and powerful God. Just jarring me out of the usual Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal. Holy God, Holy Strong, Holy Immortal. I find that very striking in the best possible way. And then, of course, his translation of the Lord's Prayer is not too far off from what we do. It's just a little less King James and a little more in your face. Our Father in heaven, may your name be hallowed. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. And then the translation of the Psalms themselves, I find to be on a par with Donald Sheehan's translation in the Psalms of David. But at any rate, for $6, you can't go wrong. So, link below for this one. Go over to Legacy Icons and get yourself one. Well done. Printed in the USA, by the way. I always like to see that. So many books are printed in China, and I try not to point out when they are, because, I'm just being nitpicky. But anyway, so that actually leads us into the grander subject of today's episode, which is going to be a long one, because now I've got a memory card. At any rate, so we're going to go over a few different ways of praying the Psalms throughout the day in accordance with different traditions. So I broke it down kind of a silly way. So various rules, monastic and parochial, Eastern and Western. Okay, so from the East, you have the Agpeya. If you ever want to read the Psalter in a day, you read the Agpeya. If you recall the episode I did on this, and maybe you need to go back and watch it, I'm not gonna judge you on that. This is a complete Coptic monastic rule, which, the fact that they even get bathroom breaks between waking up and going to sleep is beyond me, because it's intense. But if you were to take this for like home use, you'd do like the first hour and then maybe Compline, which I had a list here somewhere of stuff. I thought, there it is. Okay. So in the first hour in Matins, you have like 19 Psalms, and then in the 12th hour Compline, you have like 12 Psalms. So even reading it as a layman, like picking 2 hours out of the day and running into it, you're still reading a lot of psalms, but you're also getting the same psalms over and over again because there's no variation between the days, because you're supposed to pray the whole Psalter in a day according to this rule. So if you're super duper armchair hesychast and you think you've got it, the Yagpe is the way to go. Whew. The next would be the Byzantine usage. Psalter for prayer is a great Psalter for it, or the Holy Transfiguration Monastery Psalter, or the Sheehan Psalter, any Psalter. As long as you know where the Kathismas start and end, you can pray the Psalms in a week. And for a lot of people, the regular Eastern Orthodox will read the assigned Kathismas for Matins and Vespers in the morning and in the evening. So you have 2 Kathismas in the morning and a Kathisma in the evening. But some people have a short attention span, and so they even have trouble with that. I'm one of them. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. But the reason I like to recommend this particular Psalter, and this is just hearkening back to the review of it way back, is that you have, after each Kathisma, a set of prayers, Triparia and Cantakia, and a longer prayer. And as a resource, these prayers alone are just gorgeous. Never mind the supplemental material and stuff in here. You can go back to the review for that. But so if you're planning on just following the Kathisma, I recommend this just because, I mean, okay, I find it aesthetically pleasing. It's tight. It's got, you know, hardboard cover, bookmarks, all that stuff. I like the print. But for the extra prayers in there, if you're dead set on trying to keep a Kathisma rule, this is the one to go with. Now, from there we get confusing. The Benedictine rule, out of a monastic diurnal. This one is a reprint of the Oxford version by Lancelot Andrews Press. I love this book. I don't use it nearly as much as I should, but I have been using it. And this takes you through the Psalter in a week, mostly. Because there's so many variable parts because of, for like certain feast days, there's different appointments in the Psalters for different times of year. It's either lengthened or shortened. But for the most part, you have all the canonical hours of the day that you would read out of this Psalter. And in all actuality, is pretty easy to institute into your day-to-day life, because this was, St. Benedict wrote this rule for working people. So really, 5 to 15 minutes is the longest you'll spend in any given hour of this if you can figure out how to work it. Go back to my review on this book to get more into that. But of course, the general rubrics do lay everything out. So you have all, prime, lauds, terce, sext, none, and then you have vespers and compline. So like, let's say you wanted to take 2 services out of this book to pray on a daily, just to get yourself into that routine. Let's say you pick prime, which is 4 psalms, and compline, which is 3. And it's going to be the same. It's going to be, with prime, it's going to be different every day of the week. Well, most days of the week, I should say. And then compline is always the same, but at least you're getting a variation of the psalms. And honestly, I think that this particular Western tradition, if done antiphonally, if you're in a family or with your spouse or a loved one or even a friend, the call and response nature is really beautiful. It's a little more cerebral if you're reading it on its own. I do it from time to time, but I love communal prayer, so I save this for when I'm with my friends. Now, the other way you could do it would be Western parochial usage. And let's take this little fella out of our way for a moment. So here we have a Western Rite service book. Now, for the most part, with the exception of the... let me reach behind me and grab it, because I still have it. I haven't returned it yet. I'm so sorry. But most of the Western Rite is taken from later Latin and Anglican sources. And so there, in parochial usage, you have matins and vespers. Okay? Now, here's what I love about this. So page 9. So So the order for matins is pretty simple. You have set psalms, right, and prayers. But then, where is it? So right here then follows the portion of the Psalter appointed for the day. After each psalm shall be said, blah, 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 blah. And you see the same in Vespers. What's cool about the way the Psalter is laid out, I can't believe I just opened straight to that. And anyone who's a convert to Orthodoxy from a Western tradition will remember this, is that the Psalter is divided into 30 days, each day having morning prayer and evening prayer. And it goes linearly. There's no jumping back and forth like you do with a kathismas. So first day, morning prayer, 3, 4, 5 psalms. And then in the evening, 1, 2, come on, 3 psalms. So, and it sticks between like 3 and 5. And so that'll take you through the Psalter in a month. Now, even if you don't pray the services and you want to throw a Trisagion out there and just read a couple of psalms in the morning, take 5 minutes out of your day and get it done, this is the way I do it. When I do it, because I'm that lazy and my prayer life is that terrible. But this is the one I recommend to most people, primarily because it really is meant for the laity. That style was developed specifically for people that were just coming to church in the morning, going to church in the evening. You know, printing presses around, people actually can have psalters, and it was an easy way to get the laity engaged in praying the psalms on a daily basis. Not everyone has the discipline to sit down and read a monastic rule, whether it be Coptic, Byzantine, or Benedictine. The parochial way is the way to go for the man on the go. Or at least that's my humble opinion. You know what? Let's take a quick look at Orthodox prayers of Old England, because what you're going to find here is not too dissimilar from the Byzantine usage, in that you have the canonical hours, like I went over in the previous video, but you have Vespers, Matins, Vespers, Compline, and Matins that you can do, but it's, it's going to take you a little while. It's beautiful, and, God bless anyone that can, pray these every day. They're gorgeous. They're pretty much longer versions of what you're going to find in your common Western Rite service book. And if you're going for a Western Rite service book, Lancelot Andrews Press is probably the one to go with. This one is just from the Antiochian Archdiocese, and this is more of a bare bones version. Anyway, so those are different ways that we pray the Psalms. And you know what? If you're just looking for something to get you into the habit, for $6, $7, whatever this was, can't go wrong. It gets you praying a couple Psalms every day. It's short, sweet, and simple. And you'll find that the selection of the Psalms are a lot more striking than you'd think. At any rate, on behalf of that little monster there, hey Spooky, and myself, thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking about Psalms and books, and I love you all so very much. And I can't wait to see you all in the comments below. Let's talk more about psalm rules and prayer rules, because this is important stuff, actually. At any rate, that's it. I love you all. Go to church. Say your prayers. Remember God and pray for me, a worthless sinner. God bless.